His mom said I wasn't wife material, so I let him go and found a husband who actually loved me. You ever look at someone across the dinner table, someone you've loved for years, and suddenly realize they don't really see you at all? That was me. Sitting across from Ryan Miller, the man I'd shared a home, a dog, a dozen holidays, and 7 birthdays with. He was wearing that navy button-up I bought him 2 Christmases ago, the sleeves rolled neatly to the elbows, fork poking absently at a half-eaten steak. The same man I'd waited for, longer than I care to admit. I had just asked one simple question. So, when are we getting married? I said it lightheartedly, with a smile, like we hadn't already talked about it 100 times. Like I hadn't been waiting for that stupid little box every anniversary since you're 4. He paused, didn't smile, didn't blink. Then he set his fork down slow, like the food had suddenly turned to ash in his mouth. Madison, he started, voice low, can we not do this here? That's when I knew something was wrong. We weren't at some 5-star steakhouse. Just Harrison's Grill, 2 blocks from our apartment in Columbus, Ohio, where we'd had our second date. It was supposed to be nostalgic. Sweet. I leaned in. We've been together for 7 years, Ryan. What are we doing if not building a life together? He let out this tiny, almost invisible sigh. The kind you don't notice until you've heard it one too many times. I don't know if you're the kind of woman my family sees as wife material. Everything inside me went still, like I'd been slapped. Quietly. With words. What? I whispered. He looked down, like he was embarrassed to even be saying it, but not enough to not say it. My mom, my sisters, they just don't think you really fit. You don't go to church. You don't really want kids right away. And you're always focused on your career. That's not what they imagined for me. I stared at him, like I didn't recognize the person sitting there anymore. But what about what you imagine? I asked. He shrugged. They have a point, Mads. God, I used to love when he called me that. Now it sounded like a nickname for someone else. Someone he wanted me to be. The rest of the night blurred. I think I nodded. I think I said I needed time. I think he paid. I'm not sure. I remember walking home alone, the cold biting through my coat, my thoughts louder than the wind in my ears. 7 years. 7 years of late-night ramen and Netflix marathons. 7 years of birthday parties, anniversaries, holiday dinners. 7 years of loving someone who couldn't defend me to his own family, let alone fight for me. And the worst part? I'd known. Somewhere deep down, I'd always known. The way his mom smiled politely but never really looked at me. The way his sisters called me city girl, like it was a slur. The way he laughed along when they made those little comments about how I was too independent. But I thought if I was kind enough, supportive enough, if I just loved him hard enough, they'd come around. Instead, he came around to them. He let them decide what kind of woman deserved to marry him. And I wasn't it. I crawled into bed that night, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. Not crying. Not yet. Just wondering what it meant, to give years of your life to someone who loved you, just not the way you needed. Not loud enough. Not boldly enough. Not fully. I wasn't mad. Not yet. I was just tired. Tired of waiting to be chosen. Tired of becoming more palatable so someone's mother could approve of me. Tired of believing that love had to be earned, not given freely. I didn't know it then, but that night was the beginning of the end. Not of love, but of settling. If you're not following our channel, you might never see it again. But if you're subscribed and use the bell, congratulations. You'll always have access to the most interesting stories whenever you want to watch and listen. After that dinner, things between Ryan and me didn't explode. They just shifted, quietly, like a slow leak in a tire, barely noticeable at first, but eventually enough to throw everything off balance. He didn't bring up the marriage talk again. I didn't either. Instead, I tried to become the woman his family would approve of. And let me tell you, that was a full-time job. First, I started going to church with him on Sundays. Church of the First Baptist, the same place his family had gone since forever. I sat next to his mom in her floral skirts and polite disapproval. She always smiled, the kind that never quite reached her eyes. She'd lean over mid-sermon and whisper things like, "Oh, that's a beautiful shade on you. So much more modest than what you wore last week." Or, "You should speak with pastor's wife after the service. She leads a lovely group for young women learning to become godly wives." I'd smile back, throat tight, pretending not to feel the sting. I started helping his sisters cook during family dinners. I learned the exact way to make potato salad the way Mom likes it. I stopped bringing wine to holiday meals. Ryan's dad didn't drink, so it's just better that way. At work, I dialed back. I stopped staying late at Copper and Pine Marketing, even though I was up for a senior role. I told my manager I needed better work-life balance, when the truth was, Ryan's family didn't like that I worked more hours than he did. Ryan noticed the changes. He praised them. "You're really trying," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "Mom said you looked so elegant at church this week." Elegant. As if I'd been a project finally coming together. I looked in the mirror one night and barely recognized myself. Gone were the bold colors, the leather jacket I loved, the lipstick that made me feel like a woman who could take on the world. In their place were pastels, low heels, soft waves. I looked like someone who belonged in a wedding album. But not like me. The breaking point wasn't big. It didn't come with yelling. It came at Sunday brunch. We were at his parents' house. I'd made muffins. From scratch. With oat milk, because his sister had gone dairy-free that week. Ryan's mom pulled me aside after we'd finished eating. She poured tea into a dainty cup, motioned for me to sit across from her. She smiled. "That tight-lipped thing. You've changed so much, Madison. I'm proud of you." My stomach twisted. "Thank you," I said, though it came out more like a question. "I know you love Ryan, and I believe you want the best for him." But, she sipped her tea delicately. "Not every woman is made for marriage. That's not a bad thing. It's just, not everyone is the right fit." I stared at her. She was dismissing me. With a compliment. With grace. Like she was letting me down easy. I stood up. I should check on the muffins. I didn't cry in that kitchen. I didn't rage. But something cracked inside me. Not from her words. From the way I didn't argue. Because deep down, I'd started to believe it too, that I wasn't the right fit. That I'd need to keep shaving parts of myself down until I finally fit into the mold they'd carved out for Ryan's wife. And what scared me most? I didn't know how much more I could shave off before I disappeared completely. That night, I didn't go home with Ryan. I said I had work early. He didn't question it. He kissed my cheek, said, "Mom was in a good mood today. I think we're finally getting through to her." Getting through to her. Like I'd been a project. I drove home in silence. Didn't turn on music. Didn't check my phone. Just sat on the couch and stared at the version of myself I'd become. Soft. Palatable. Quiet. Respectable. Loved by everyone but me. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. I don't know the exact moment it clicked. Maybe it was when I sat through another dinner at Ryan's parents' house, nodding politely while his sister explained why women shouldn't work full-time if they really want a family. Or maybe it was when Ryan didn't correct her. He just sipped his iced tea and offered me a quiet glance, like, "Don't make this a thing, okay?" I had become very good at not making things a thing. And in that skill, I had lost parts of myself I didn't even realize were missing. Every day I was morphing. I caught myself saying things I never would have before. Phrases like, "I just think it's important to prioritize family values," in conversations I didn't believe in. I was smiling through comments that made me want to scream. Laughing politely when someone suggested I take cooking classes before getting serious about marriage. But it wasn't just about his family anymore. Ryan was changing too. Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe I was just finally seeing the version of him I'd refused to acknowledge. Like when he praised me for not arguing in public, or when he'd say things like, "I'm really proud of how you've settled into the role." The role. Not the relationship. Not the partnership. The role. I wasn't a woman to him anymore. I was a performance. And apparently, I was doing great. Except I couldn't sleep at night. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when I had become someone who needed to be trained into worthiness. Who I was before him, before them, before pastel dresses and modest smiles and agreeable opinions. I remembered being fiery. I remembered standing my ground. I remembered loving my job, my voice, my freedom. Now, I apologized when I didn't agree. I bit my tongue more times than I could count. I had stopped dreaming about my wedding day because I wasn't sure I'd like the woman walking down the aisle anymore. One afternoon, my best friend Kendra called. She'd moved to Denver 2 years ago, and we hadn't talked in a while. But when I picked up, her voice was warm, familiar. A tether to the version of me that once existed. "How's Columbus treating you?" she asked. I hesitated. "It's stable." She laughed. "God, you sound like a woman trapped in a beige room." I wanted to laugh too, but I didn't. "Is Ryan finally proposing?" she added. I hesitated again. "That's complicated." She paused. "Mads, you okay?" And in that moment, I cracked. I didn't even say anything. I just cried. For 10 full minutes. Kendra didn't interrupt. She just listened. Finally, I whispered, "I don't think he loves me. I think he loves what I'm becoming for him." That silence said everything. "I miss the girl who used to challenge everything," she said. The one who didn't shrink herself to fit into anyone's idea of wife material. So did I. That night, Ryan came home late. Church board meeting or something. He kissed my head, complimented the dinner I'd made, then said, "Mom invited you to the ladies' retreat next month. It'll be good for you. Real bonding time." I blinked, then smiled, and said, "Sure. Sounds great." But inside, I felt nothing. I had finally become the woman they all wanted. And in doing so, I had lost every piece of who I was. That retreat would be the last straw. But I didn't know it yet. Not fully. The invitation came in the form of a handwritten card, sealed with a little gold sticker. "Lunch with just us girls," it read, in Carol's loopy cursive, Ryan's mom. It was meant to be special, intimate, a bonding moment, like she was welcoming me deeper into the family. Ryan was thrilled. "She's finally warming up to you," he said, beaming. "This is huge." I smiled, but inside, something churned. I already knew this wasn't lunch. This was an evaluation. We met at the Gables Cafe, a place where women wore pearls in the middle of the week and the napkins were folded like swans. I wore a long-sleeve blush blouse and modest heels. My makeup soft. My earrings simple. I arrived 5 minutes early. Carol was already seated, sipping chamomile tea like it had never betrayed her. She greeted me with that familiar tight-lipped smile. "You look lovely," she said, eyes scanning me from hair to hemline. "Thank you," I replied, adjusting my sleeves. Small talk. Menu glances. She asked about work, and I gave her the edited version, still at Copper and Pine, just helping with campaigns. I didn't mention the promotion I'd recently turned down. "Good," she said. "Balance is important." Then the waiter left, and the shift happened. Her smile faded just slightly, her tone dropped half an octave, still sweet, but deliberate. "Madison," she began, "I wanted this lunch because I know we haven't always seen eye to eye. And that's okay. Families are about compromise." I nodded. "I agree." She leaned forward. "But Ryan, he's very traditional. He was raised to believe marriage is sacred, that a wife supports her husband's mission, that she nurtures the home." I stayed silent. She took a sip of tea, then gently added, "You're smart. You're driven. But I worry, sometimes, women who focus too much on themselves struggle to be soft where it counts." My stomach turned. Soft. That word again. Like I was a pillow being tested for fluff. Carol smiled again, tilting her head. "You've come a long way. You've changed a lot. And that hasn't gone unnoticed." I didn't say thank you, because it didn't feel like praise. It felt like a review of my compliance. Then she said it. "But I do believe some women are better suited for other paths. Maybe not marriage." And that's not an insult, just a recognition of who God designed us to be. I blinked. Had she just told me I wasn't designed to be a wife? She kept going. "I don't say this to be cruel. I just think, if you and Ryan aren't fully aligned, it's better to step aside now before deeper commitments are made." Step aside. Like I was in the way. Like I was a placeholder until someone more fitting came along. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Thank you for lunch." Then I stood up and left. I didn't cry in the cafe. I didn't run to the car. I walked, head high, step steady. But the moment the door shut behind me, my chest cracked open. 7 years. 7 years of compromise. Sacrifice. Shrinking. For what? So his mother could look me in the eye and say I wasn't built to be loved by her son? No. I was done. Done performing. Done earning approval like it was a prize. Done trying to be wife material for a man who let his mother do the heavy lifting in loving me. I didn't call Ryan that night. I didn't answer his texts. Instead, I sat on the couch with my journal, the TV off, the room silent. And I wrote 4 words. This isn't love anymore. I didn't pack everything that night. Just the essentials. My laptop, a few work outfits, the toothbrush I kept in the hall bathroom, and the journal that had become my closest confidant. It was almost midnight when I left. Ryan was still texting. "Where are you? Did something happen with Mom? Babe, talk to me." I turned my phone off. I wasn't ready to explain anything yet. Not because I owed him silence, but because I needed the quiet for myself. I crashed at Kendra's place. She flew in that same week after I left her a tearful voicemail, and when she opened the door to her apartment, she didn't say, "What happened?" or "Why now?" She just wrapped me in a hug that said, "Welcome back." Back to me. Back to the version of myself that hadn't needed approval stamped on her life choices. For the first time in years, I slept like a rock. No anxiety, no tension in my shoulders. Just peace. The kind that hums gently under your skin. The next few days were a blur of logistics. I called my landlord and asked to reinstate the lease I'd ended when I moved in with Ryan. Luckily, the apartment hadn't been filled yet. Fate, or maybe just dumb luck. I paid the deposit and picked up my old keys that same day. The place was empty, dusty, and needed light bulbs. But it was mine. No one sighed when I turned the thermostat to 72. No one asked why I didn't fold the towels the way his mom did. No one raised eyebrows when I poured a glass of wine on a Wednesday at 8 p.m. Freedom, I was learning, is made up of the tiniest choices. Ryan showed up at my office on Thursday. He looked panicked, tie loose, eyes red, like he hadn't slept. "Madison, we need to talk," he said, trying to keep his voice low in the lobby. I walked him outside. He was quiet at first. Then he looked at me and said, "What did my mom say to you?" I paused. "Does it matter?" "It does if she said something that made you think." "Ryan," I interrupted, "your mom didn't make me do anything. She just reminded me what I've been trying not to see for a long time." His brow furrowed. "Which is that I've been changing who I am just to stay in this relationship, and that you've let it happen. Encouraged it, even." "I never," he started, but I held up my hand. "You didn't have to say it out loud. You let it happen every time you didn't defend me. Every time you told me to not make it a thing. Every time your mom insulted me with a smile, and you acted like it was fine." He was quiet then. Still, wounded. "Madison, I love you." I believed him. I really did. But I also believe this. Love that requires you to become smaller to fit inside someone's idea of it isn't really love. At least not the kind I wanted. "I know you do," I said gently. "But you don't respect me. And your family never will. And I'm tired of building my life on borrowed space." He blinked, like he'd never heard me speak this way before. Maybe he hadn't. I turned and walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't cry. Just breathed. The months that followed weren't easy. I second-guessed myself more times than I care to admit. I stared at photos of us on my phone and remembered the sweet moments, the road trips, the breakfast in bed, the time we slow danced in the kitchen to no music. But memory is a funny thing. It edits out the warnings. The nights I cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't see. The hours I spent rewording texts to avoid sounding too harsh. The way his mom's voice could deflate my mood in 3 seconds flat. Kendra helped. She brought me tacos at midnight and made me laugh until my ribs hurt. My therapist helped. She reminded me that healing isn't linear. My coworkers helped, especially when I finally took that promotion and led my first campaign. And somewhere in the mix of all that, I helped myself, little by little. I started journaling again, not about survival, but about growth. I painted, took long walks with no destination, said yes to brunch invites, spoke my mind, loudly, sometimes. It felt like meeting myself again, and I really liked her. About 6 months later, I got the text. "Hey, I don't know if this is okay, but I wanted to tell you I got engaged. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're happy." It was from Ryan. The message didn't sting. It didn't make me jealous. It didn't even surprise me. Because of course he found someone else. Someone who fit. Someone who wouldn't challenge him or his family's mold. Someone he could place neatly into the life they designed for him. I wished her luck. Not out of sarcasm, but honesty. Because she'd need it. She wasn't marrying a monster. She was marrying a man who let others define love for him. And that, in its own quiet way, is more dangerous than any storm. The next morning, I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle and the quote that reads, "You can't shrink yourself into someone else's dream." I smiled, because I wasn't shrinking anymore. I was expanding. And damn, it felt good. I didn't expect that afternoon to change everything. I was elbow deep in organizing my art supplies when the phone rang. The caller ID flashed a Columbus number, Ryan. I stared at it for a long beat before shaking my head and answering. "Hey," I said, voice steady. It felt strange calling him that after months of silence. "Madison?" His voice cracked across the line. It sounded raw, ashamed. Not the polished voice of someone proposing a humbled man. I didn't say anything. After a pause, he continued. I found out this weekend. Sarah, my fiancée, she isn't who I thought she was." He took in a shaky breath before continuing. "We separated. She had an affair. And I'm broken, Mads. I don't know what I am anymore." I kept my voice soft. Even. "I'm sorry you're hurting," I said. There was silence. "Can we talk? Please." I didn't answer. Because I already knew where this was headed. He was looking for comfort, forgiveness, a second chance. I realized I had grown in so many ways, stronger, braver, quieter where it counted. I exhaled, letting the silence expand. "Ryan, I'm glad you're getting honest with yourself. But I'm not the cure for what you didn't let me be." He sighed, and it carried years of regret. "I know," he whispered. I screwed up. Goodbye, Madison." It wasn't harsh, just final. The line went dead, and I sat there, finger hovering over the screen. I put the phone down. 2 weeks later, I was walking through the lobby of Copper and Pine Marketing on the way to present a campaign idea I'd been crafting for months. The corner office felt calm, not triumphant. That was new. Inside, my team greeted me with applause. They had helped me design the presentation and been part of every step, no behind-the-scenes labor erased. I did my thing. They did theirs. And we succeeded together. When I stepped out, I checked my phone. A text from Kendra. Feel like celebrating tonight? I smiled and replied, yes. Brunch at noon? Brunch at noon turned into dinner at 7. I wore my favorite red lipstick and laughed so loud I startled myself. Later, I drove past a house on my old street, the one Ryan and I shared. It was empty now. I slowed at the stop sign and watched the lights in the windows, nobody there. I drove on. At home, I lit a candle and poured a glass of wine. I opened my journal and wrote 3 things. I chose me over comfort. I found love again with myself. I will never be someone else's second choice again. I closed the journal and turned off the lights. Then I took a deep breath, full and final. You lose love, not yourself. Weeks later, I walked into the lobby of the Columbus Art Gallery for my first solo exhibition. My pieces were fiery, bold colors, abstract shapes, unapologetic strokes. They represented the exact opposite of the submissive pastel palette I once wore for approval. The curator whispered compliments. Friends and strangers mingled, impressed by my story unfolding on canvas. A woman in her 60s shook my hand and said, "Your art speaks of liberation. You look free." I wanted to say thank you. So I did. Because I was. That night, I called my mom. We laughed on the phone, remembering the old me who used to perform perfect dinners. I told her about the art show. She cried happy tears. Said she missed me the way I was. I hung up thinking, love that frees you? That encourages your voice? That sees you? That lasts. I blew out the candles. The room went dark. But inside, I was shining. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too. Also, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? What city and country? And have you or someone you know ever been through something like this?